Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm delighted to say that George has joined us this morning from Nexum, and we're going to have a great chat about content and commerce today. Hi George, how are you?
Hi, many thanks for having me, and I really appreciate the chance to talk to you. Good topic.
Yeah, it is a good topic, but before we get into that topic, George, I think we should just learn a little bit more about yourself and also about Nexum. But let's start with you, and maybe get the full introduction.
Okay, many thanks. Yeah, well, my name is Georg Kühl. I'm one of the founders of Nexum, and I call myself digital grandpa, since my friends and myself, we started in the late 90s, working in the IT segment. So our first company was a mixture between a product company. Somehow we learned that these products are named content management systems. So we did one of the first IPOs in Germany back in those days. On the other hand, we were also doing IT networks, corporate networks, hosting, things like that. After the IPO, I moved to a consultancy company, which was very much focusing on actually the combination of e-commerce and content management systems. So we were actually in those days one of the first who implemented those, let's say, new kids on the block coming over from the Silicon Valley in the .com high phase.
Yes. So what sort of time frame was this in?
That was around the 2000s until 2002. Then for sure, the bubble exploded.
Did.
Or imploded, whatever.
Yes.
And we all saw the downside of the market, which also was quite good learning, I have to admit. Then I was moving to a large agency network working in Europe. And after that, we thought, okay, it's time for setting up something new. And some of my colleagues and friends, we kind of started the origin of Nexum. We started within a big company, which was also on the stock exchange market. We just started at a, let's say, department. And then in 2012, we took the chance to make a management buyout. And by now we're probably one of the biggest independent companies in our industry in Europe.
Fantastic. That's a great story. Good entrepreneurial story. We like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what does Nexum do now? What's the scope of the offer and the services you provide?
When we set up the business, since a lot of my colleagues come from very different directions. So we have pure, let's say, agency people or consultancy people, creative people. Then we have a lot of people with a long track record in software development. For example, for this content management system, but also working for one of the first bigger e-commerce vendors in Europe in the product development, product information management. So we also know, let's say, the technical part, and for sure we know a lot about processes. And what we said when we set up Nexum, we don't want to be the next agency or the next pure technical implementation company.
Right, sure.
So we, right from the beginning, we had a very large focus on consultancy. Independent consultancy, and then not only like normal consultancy. Okay, you say, okay, choose this and that, and then off you go. Also having the chance then in combination with the customer, if the customer wants to, that we then do the implementation and actually also the ongoing, support, further development after the launches, before the launch. So continuous development.
Absolutely.
Like that.
Well, that's the big thing, isn't it? That's changed, I think, in all that time in my career, is this move away from these big waterfall projects, that dominated system integration back in the sort of early noughties, as it were, to now this much more agile approach, which is really just a continuous transformation, isn't it? And I think, very good. So maybe just help to give us an example. What's your favorite customer example, George? Walk us through a good Nexum client.
Well, we have like a bunch of different customer and even customer relations. So mainly we actually have customer where we working quite a long period for. So for example, for Lufthansa, more than, I would say, 12 years. The Coop in Switzerland, which is the biggest retailer there, even longer. And so it's that we do technical parts, we do implementation parts, but we also do design parts, creative parts, more on a strategic level. So I think 3 years ago, we won a new customer, quite interesting. It's a corporate startup, and it is called Melitta. Melitta is quite famous coffee brand, but they're also producing machines. And they choose us because they could have a, let's say, one-stop shopping at Nexum. So we had a greenfield approach, and the idea is they producing new machines, which are mostly, let's say, on the on an Apple system, B2C system, very, very digital focus. And we did the entire thing in terms of campaigning, marketing, UX, UI personas. But even more important, we did the consultancy and the implementation for different parts of services you need. So you need a service cloud, you need a commerce cloud, marketing, social, and this is an ongoing project. And our team is actually doing, let's say, the permanent work on this, and the guys of Melitta focusing on, inventing new machines. And you have then the next. It's
great.
Language.
Yeah, very interesting projects, aren't they? I mean, there's this whole Internet of Things, that is coming, and everything these days seems to be internet enabled in one shape or another. And that's a sort of good segue, I think, into thinking a little bit about how content and commerce is defined now and where it's going to go. So you talked, very eloquently about how Nexum was very early into this kind of idea of bringing CMS and e-commerce together. Let's start at the top, though. Why were the two things separate in the first place is a good question, I think, to answer. And what is it about combining them that is so attractive from a customer's perspective?
Very, very good question indeed. As I said, some of my colleagues and myself, we first were working for a CMS vendor. So then we did a lot of e-commerce projects. And so you always saw the weakness of one system.
Yes.
So if you have a pure e-commerce system in let's say in those days, you won't be able to have good content. So you need to have an integration. And since, it's going faster and faster, especially if it comes to consultancy, while shopping, everything which has to do with emotions, but everything which has to do at least with machine commerce, with at the end of the day headless, then you have to have a package where both systems at least work pretty good together. And that was always our approach. And in let's say some years ago, you only had single vendors who can focus on one thing.
Yes, that's true.
We always see that either if you're a very big company, like a Fortune 500 company, and you can have let's say a bigger budget, if you have those monoliths in terms of software, they are not good to handle. If you're a smaller company or a startup, it's also hard to handle if you have too many systems which are not integrated. And at the end of the day, you have to be fast in e-commerce. It always depends on your product, on your sales cycle, if you have campaigns, things like that. And on the other hand, you need to have good ideas in doing upselling and so on and so forth. Campaigning coming from whatever system.
That's right. I think these days, well, certainly it used to be the case when I was back in system integration land with John Williams, our CTO, sort of early 2000s. Customers, it was very siloed in the customer. So, the commerce team owned the e-commerce problem. The marketeers kind of had the CMS, didn't they? And the challenge was always, how do you bring those two worlds together without creating a horrible mess? Because of course, the monoliths, always assumed they own the glass. That was kind of the problem, wasn't it? So the question was always, who's in the ascendancy here? Is it the CMS which is going to control the experience, or is it the e-commerce platform that's going to control the experience? And I guess in my experience, it very much depended on what sort of customer it was. If they were a retailer, the commerce guys won. And if they were very much a brand that also sold online, then the marketeers tended to win that discussion.
Yeah, and especially as we see it right now, I don't know what are your experiences, but we see right now a fast increasing of demand of brands who turn towards direct commerce.
Yes.
So if it's especially fast-moving consumer goods, if it's whatever, fashion brands, things like that, but also in the B2B sector. And therefore, you need to have very good content processes, content experience, things like that. And therefore, I would say that the marketeers have in future more, let's say, power. Because
I think
very, it comes, if they come from whatever, TikTok or WeChat or Facebook, Instagram, whatever, you have to integrate it. You have to have the machine-to-machine integration. You have to have online, offline, omni-channel, things like that, especially if it comes to campaigns, marketing, automation.
Very much so. I think the other thing that we've really seen during COVID is because all the stores were shut, of course, everything was online.
Yeah.
And so the e-commerce team has gone from maybe 20% of overall revenue to 100% overnight. And so, of course, every customer interaction was intermediated digitally. So whether or not you were very integrated content and commerce-wise, I think customers have had to move very fast in the last 6 months to fix some of those processes, because everything had to happen in that digital first kind of way.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, we saw it at some of our customers who are retailers, for sure. They had the shutdown, and they saw, okay, it's more or less every day Black Friday.
Yes, exactly.
They have a good content experience and content and commerce platform. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, very good. So I guess things have changed over the years. We've gone from these two very separate systems to this feeling that there's an emerging digital experience category, I think, which sort of combines content, commerce into one overarching digital experience framework. How do you see that playing out? And is that the right way to think about it?
Definitely, because there are so many more, let's say, influences. As I said before, you have to face everything which has to do with the social media stuff, which has to do with, for sure, mobile first integration.
Yes, of course.
So you get the people where they are. Machine to machine, combination of campaigning, if it comes brands together with retailers. If it comes to things like that, we have some requests of customers right now where classical fast-moving consumer good producers are actually trying to set up a direct commerce way.
Yes.
They are not doing it directly, let's say, against the retailers. Maybe you get special products only via their, let's say, own commerce channel. And therefore, you have to have the content experience. You have to have, for sure, also the right content. What we still often see, or what we still facing, is that there still is a lack of understanding if it comes to content. Where do I get the right content? The product data, for sure. Nowadays, even more like good photos, good videos, descriptions, things like that.
Yeah, and ultimately you've got to do the brand storytelling as well, haven't you? So they've got this. So, and this is always where it became challenging in these content and commerce engagements, because of course the merchants want to sell things and the brand people want to talk about the storytelling. So the art of it, I always thought, was how do you integrate the two without one getting in the way of the other?
Definitely, yeah.
You know, yeah,
it must work together, and you even face it more if you have very strong brand-related companies. So
yes.
they even have a stronger focus on the brands. They often, because it's, let's say, not their heritage or their experience, they not really care potentially enough about the commerce process.
Yes, agreed.
Still, it's like you have to. Everybody has to learn from the other side.
They do, don't they? And I think one of the interesting things we've also seen is that everybody is invested in personalization technology.
Yeah.
Right? So in commerce land, that's typically starts with recommendations. Of course, if you're in brand land, it starts with targeting. Really, that's how the market is. Think about it. But it does feel like finally there is a more unified sort of customer first. I was going to say, I guess, method, but I think it's more a realization that you have to put the customer at the center of that experience and actually build an experience which is going to be more relevant, because otherwise, frankly, why would you come back?
Yeah, definitely. It's about the experience, and you have to catch the customer where he is right now.
Yeah.
Physically, but also in, let's say, in his mind towards your whatever company, brand, and so on. Do you have campaigns? Do you have loyalty programs, whatever?
Yeah. And then the challenge, of course, is the more of that you want to do, the more content you need. So then we get back into process and, just how efficiently you can create that content and reuse that content.
Well, and at the end of the day, you as a vendor want to own your own content because then you're not that much dependent either on the retailer side, but even more on those, gaffers like Google, Facebook, and so on.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. So I guess thinking about where content and commerce is going to go, I think we've touched on a few of those. What would you pick as the key trends that are going to define the sort of content and commerce space over the next 18 to 24 months?
Yeah, I definitely think about very fast and good integration in capabilities. First, in between those potentially tools, or even like if you put it on a more technical level, I really think that there is a faster move into this headless technologies, like you have at Amplience for sure as well. And the other thing is, I think organizations have to be better in those agile projects. There's a huge demand, but I think often it's not really, let's say, that the customer is able to do those big projects for some reasons, because you have those silos still, and you have to integrate it, and you have to be very, very fast in scaling up either on the internal organization or having good software vendors for sure, like you, but also good partners on the consultancy and implementation side that they really help you. And I think that there will be a more that's what we are facing with our customer. We always have a very, very long customer relationship, and we are not about having too much new customers. It's better to have even less customer as a service company, but having a reliable and a longer relationship. It's better for both.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely.
What we see right now is that a lot of customers are also willing to see it more or less as a partnership. That see, okay, we have this and this demand on like technology, people, whatever. and like scale it together up and maybe do it in a joint venture or a company building. I think this is potentially one of the biggest trends right now, because there is a huge demand still if it comes to, name it, digital knowledge, if it's on a technical level or marketing level, or any new trends, whatever. If it comes to internationalization, sorry. What about the Chinese market? Single days. What about Black Friday? What about whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're quite right. Everybody seems to have a digital transformation project. But I don't think they are all created equal in the sense that they have necessarily the right level of commitment from the organization as a whole. And also the right partnership structure, as you say, is absolutely critical, because these things are, these things are multi-year engagements if they're really going to deliver value. And I think that's, therefore the relationship's absolutely critical, isn't it? And that there's a high level of trust and competency in that team. And I think, that's a good position for you guys to be in. I'm sure there's much demand for the Nexum services, and we're delighted to be working with you, Georg, at Amplience. It's a great partnership, and here's to many more projects together.
Yeah, we would love to, but I think we're in a very good way.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, thanks for talking to me this morning.
Perfect. Many thanks to you. It was great.
Great.